Hey everybody, this is Robert at Merritt Web, and this particular video is going to be a critical analysis of the DSM-5. I know some of you use the DSM, and I will be programming it. Today is January 24th, 2017, and I've begun the preliminary programming or exploration, actually, of programming this instrument. And I thought that I would, for those who are interested, I would put together a critical analysis of the DSM-5. I have up on the screen something from, I believe I got this from psychiatry.org. Might have come from the DSM-5 site. That site has been essentially stripped down and it's been moved to psychiatry.org. But it came from one of those two places. These are the DSM-5 categories, and as far as I'm concerned, this is a better organization of the disorders than the DSM-4. I never understood why bipolar and depressive were in the same category, the mood disorder category. That didn't make any sense to me. There are some issues here with some of these categories, but we won't get into those now. And some of those are things like the autistic spectrum. As far as I'm concerned, that's really messed up. They did away with Asperger's. Having had experience with treating someone with Asperger's, it is, I do understand it does have some characteristics of autism, and it would have been okay to create a new field for autism, autistic type disorders, and then include Asperger's under it. But that's not what happened. And I'll let you go explore what they did with that on your own. There is some really significant stuff that they did there that they tried to do throughout all of the DSM-5, and they weren't able to do it. They tried to do it to the personality section, and too many people got just upset about what they were trying to do. What they wanted to do was create this broad spectrum, and then have you pick and choose symptomology off of that broad group, and it just didn't work. Autism now is under neurodevelopmental, and if you want to look it up, it's on page 50 in the DSM-5. We won't go there. I don't know, I may do more videos and look at some of the stuff that they did that I really think was amiss. But if you've dealt with Asperger's and you attempt to diagnose somebody, starting on page 50 in the DSM-5, you're going to find that it's extraordinarily difficult to accurately diagnose that person. I really hate to say it, but it's almost like they don't understand Asperger's. Asperger's is in the autistic spectrum of disorders, but it is totally distinct from autism, and it was best defined in the DSM-4. So anyway, that's my little rant about that particular issue. Just don't think it was well thought out. They tried to do the same thing with personalities that they did with Asperger's, and that is they were gonna leave, I don't know, 4 or 5 personality disorders, and then there was going to be this catch-all other personality disorders, and you would pick and choose from a list of symptoms that a person had, but you'd never be able to put a name on that, like schizoid or borderline, although borderline was going to stay. But you wouldn't be able to communicate with another person and say this person has schizoid issues with their personality. You'd have to say, well, this person has an other personality disorder type that includes, and you have to go down a list, which would essentially detail schizoid without putting the name on it. That got flatly denied. It is in the book here somewhere. With the book open in front of me. See if I can find it real fast. They did put this new system in, this personality system in. And I can't initially right off find this. Those are just the V disorders. It's an appendix. Okay, page 761. If you've got the book, you can see an alternative DSM-5 model for personality disorders. Can't see anybody using that. I really can't. Another feature of the DSM-5 is that they have gone to the ICD-10, which you no longer have the 200 codes, the 300 codes. You have the F codes. Most of them are F codes. F70 is intellectual disability mild, rather than 317, which is the DSM-9 designation. So I guess it was time to move up to that. That's fine. Let's see what else on my list here. Just a couple things that they did clarify that were not clear before. Panic disorder. In the DSM-4, panic disorder with agoraphobia, panic disorder without agoraphobia. I don't know why the DSM-4 essentially forced you to define whether or not there was agoraphobia with the panic disorder. Those are two separate diagnoses, and they should remain separate. They are separate now in the DSM-5. Dysthymia, kind of a weird word. It was under mood disorders associated with depression. It is a long-term, at least 2-year-long, milder form of depression where a person does not reach the criteria for a major depressive episode, but they do have depressive symptoms for at least 2 years. That was called dysthymia, and it's kind of a weird word, and nobody really knew what it meant. So now they've changed it to persistent depressive disorder, and that's exactly what dysthymia is. Good choice on their part to do that. Possibility that we're going to end up going on to another video about this. I'm going to try to get through this, but let's see. In the DSM-4, there were a lot of criterias where, in order to diagnose someone, say there was 10 things on the list of symptoms, you had to have at least 5 5 out of these 10 in order to diagnose. Well, that set a benchmark for what the diagnosis was. In the DSM-5, there's a lot of places where it's just kind of open-ended, and it says this disorder is characterized by, and then it lists 10 things, but it doesn't tell you how many of them a person has to have in their clinical expertise to be diagnosed with that particular issue. So it's left up to the clinician to determine or to decide how many of these a person has to have. I may say 3, you may say 8, and we could argue about it all day long, but nobody's set a standard for that. Now, this is not the case with all diagnostic criteria, but it is an issue that I have seen on a number of occasions, and I really think that that's a mistake. Nearly every diagnosis has at least 2, usually 3, catch-alls. And what I mean by a catch-all is depressive disorder, NOS it used to be called, but it didn't occur in every diagnosis. Well, almost every diagnosis now has other as other anxiety disorder. And then there's this other thing, it's unspecified anxiety disorder. Most of them, or a lot of them, have a third one, substance-induced anxiety disorder, or depressive disorder, whatever. So you've got too many of these catch-alls. You know, that if you want to diagnose someone with depression, you can do it, because you can always use the unspecified or the other category. And again, this diminishes the force of any diagnosis. The trauma I have a problem with. I had a problem with it in the DSM-4. I still have the problem with it in the DSM-5. It wasn't fixed. And that is that post-traumatic stress disorder is defined. It is defined as something that has happened. There is no definition for something that is in the process of happening, or that is an ongoing thing, like living in a war zone, living in a ghetto where someone doesn't know if they're going to get shot to death on a bus stop. That is different than post-traumatic stress disorder. I can't really put a label on that anywhere in this volume. It's not there. So I'm going to end this video now, and then we're going to have a critical analysis 2 video to complete this process.